There haven't been too many themes that video games have consistently tackled since their inception, like love. Well, maybe consistent is the wrong word to use. It's always been there, but it hasn't always been handled correctly. It's making the natural seem ever so slightly very unnatural. Video games often get a bad reputation for having a tone-deaf approach to writing, but I don't know. I found the narrative behind Dive Kick to be very engaging. I especially loved the bit when that one guy kicked the other guy in the head. That was my favourite part. To be fair, video games have proven now and again to be able to write intelligent interactions between two people who then end up naturally falling in love, but then you have games that are like, hey, you know which two characters need to be an item? Neither do I, let's spin that bottle. If the story is an afterthought in some games, the romantic subplot that is sometimes surgically inserted in a game is an afterthought within the story. Maybe you need an extra reason to care about your role in this video game, but surely it should be handled a bit more carefully if that's the case. Some games let you hook up with whoever you want, almost as if to put the onus on the player to write that story. Don't trust professional writers to make the right decision, they don't even have a bottle to spin. Using a budding relationship as the incentive behind your journey through a video game is hilariously common. Kind of a problems of the times thing. Back in the day, players needed a goal to drive their quest forward, and the easiest common denominator is women. Don't really want to go into this too much, mainly because it's more entertaining seeing Anita Sarkeesian make a mess of that discussion point. But all I want to say is that it's a cliche and a little outdated. Can't say that it didn't work though. You were motivated to save Princess Peach or Princess Zelda or Marion Kelly from Double Dragon. You remember Marion, right? She gets stolen away from you by these assholes and you spend the game working through them and getting her back. Easy? Not what I would call it. The whole point of Double Dragon is that you bring a friend along to play alongside you, and it makes the game a lot easier, and it really does help you build a rapport with your twin brother as you fight through hordes of gang members. But what happens at the end when you have to save your girlfriend? 2 doesn't go into 1 very well. Stop it. If you're the sort of person who plays a game like Double Dragon on their own, you get the kind of standard ending you should come to expect. You killed thousands, of course you deserve the girl at the end. Don't you know anything about history? Stalin had a lot of sex. But what happens if you get to the end with 2 players? It's not such a stretch to imagine it. This ain't no Battletoads, son, you can't hurt each other here. Oh, maybe you can. Maybe you can only get some closure to your journey and save Marion by brutally beating the shit out of your twin brother to win her affection. As a game mechanic, it's awesome. I love the idea of the final boss being your co-op partner. But it's hard to appreciate it when you're doing it to win the heart of a psychopath. I mean, she's the love interest of Billy Lee, but she'll happily hook up with his twin brother Jimmy if he proves to be stronger. Apparently, she likes salad and cats. Most serial killers do. Many video games use the protagonist as an insert for the player. This is why we often have blank slate protagonists with the social skills of cardboard. That's some scathing social commentary on the kind of people who play your video games. I don't think that's such a good idea. But even when they aren't silent and acting as an avatar for the player, there's this strange tendency to shoehorn some kind of romantic relationship into a setting and a scenario that doesn't really warrant one. Galen Marek, or Starkiller, is the name given to this emotionless cyborg from Star Wars The Force Unleashed, who has his parents murdered by Darth Vader at a young age and is strung alongside as his apprentice. That is a really cool setup. Playing as the bad guys rubbing elbows of Darth Vader, it is a genuinely interesting way of approaching a Star Wars story. But then Vader betrays Starkiller a few times, causing the latter to question his role in the universe and rebel against his master. All we need is some kind of last-minute romantic subplot. Oh, here we go! Is it some kind of Star Wars-y thing, or just a trait of someone who's been trained to use the Force, that they lead a sheltered life that results in some of the most wooden social interactions you could ever want to see? Starkiller literally falls in love with his taxi driver, but their first interactions come at a time when Starkiller is so wrapped up in his missions that he brushes it off. Actually, he acts like a stone for most of this game, only showing any signs of affection towards Juno Eclipse, when the story forces a kiss kiss out of the pair before he goes off to the Death Star to probably die. And die he does, so it was a romance that lasted about half an hour before being consigned to the pages of, hey, he did a cool thing, let's use that as an inspiration. At least Starkiller's side of the relationship makes sense. He did have Darth Vader as a mentor for all that time. We're lucky he didn't break into a speech about sand being all coarse and shit. Juno Eclipse has been written into this story in a very strange way. You've already been betrayed by Darth Vader for the second time, so that's all the motivation Starkiller really needs, it's just revenge. But then Juno Eclipse comes along and just gives him more motivation that he doesn't really need. So, there's no point. If you can remove a character and have no repercussions in your story, maybe you fucked up the writing just a little bit. My brief bit of research into what the internet thinks on this topic has enlightened me to the fact that Final Fantasy can't write romantic relationships for shit. Okay, so they clearly can. In fact, Square have shown on a number of occasions that when the plot is laid out fairly simply, they can weave a pretty convincing bond between two characters, but that's so often been the case, making it convincing. There's something almost George Lucas-y about some of the dialogue given to Final Fantasy characters, and that makes it pretty hard to believe most of the emotions that they display to each other. It really comes down to what you dislike more in a half-baked video game romance. Two people falling in love who clearly hate each other, or the game telling you that two people are in love but with virtually no show. Oh, I know which one's more annoying. Pretty much straight out of the gate, you're told that Noctis and Luna Freya from Final Fantasy 15 have a thing for each other. They're childhood friends who end up in an arranged marriage to make a peace treaty work between their two kingdoms, one of which is full of bad guys now. They're both okay with this because apparently they're in love with each other, but you could have fooled me. It's a romance that's played a lot in the background of flashbacks and cryptic phrases, but the time they spend on screen together is minimal. The game spends a long time making a big deal about their engagement to each other, but from what I see here, there's not a lot of chemistry between the two. You should know better, Final Fantasy 15. How long was that game in development for? You should have picked up on something at some point. It's fucking years. You know, it's an old rule of films. It's a much better idea to show two characters interacting with each other in an amorous way than just, yeah, they love each other. You see this banana in this tissue box? Yeah, they love each other too. Do you want to see them kiss? I can do that. Given that the central theme behind 90% of video games out there is some kind of large conflict, usually larger than the characters themselves, it can be a little bit hard to believe that such strong relationships can blossom from incredibly high-stress scenarios. You know, the world is in grave danger, but do you want to bang first? The stakes are a little lower than holy shit, the world's coming to an end in a game like Heavy Rain, but a game that is almost entirely character-driven tends to exhibit its characters in fairly simple terms. Even more interesting, Heavy Rain gives you options on how you'd like certain scenes or events to go, which further builds up certain traits within individuals within the story. Heavy Rain has to do this because the gameplay is pushing a couple of buttons in time to the action on screen. It's like a rhythm game with no rhythm. Anyway, you've got Ethan Mars, who loses one kid to a car accident and another to some kidnapper called the Origami Killer, and then spends the whole game completing questionable tasks in order to get the second kid back. He's a deeply flawed protagonist with a lot of holes in his character that you can make bigger by choosing certain options. That's what makes it more compelling, it transcends beyond conventional behavior. But we've still got time for a creepy manufactured love interest. So Madison Page's purpose in this game is to give more of an overview of certain events as they happen, and to also provide some explanation of who the Origami Killer is. She gets in with Ethan when she realizes that his son was recently kidnapped and kind of follows him around for a while. When Ethan ends up back at a motel in shock that he's maybe or maybe not killed a man, this scene somehow ends with the option of being able to kiss Madison and take the relationship further. There's some really strange pacing to it too. The last bit of dialogue you get before the jittery kiss options is Ethan saying that his son Sean is the only thing that matters now, but then, oh shit, she's leaning in, what's a boy to do? It's hard to understand what the intended overriding feel of the scene is supposed to be, but I feel like at least one of these characters is exploiting the vulnerability of the other, and that's a little creepy. First time playing Heavy Rain and I killed that drug dealer. Ethan Mars in a state afterwards and I thought, nah, I probably wouldn't be hooking up with anyone if I just killed a man. This nets you the second best ending in the game, and that's kind of annoying because that says to me that regardless of the choice you might want to exercise, you've got to go along with this romance to get the best ending. Mr. David Cage, stop it. Also, stop it with the interactive sex scene afterwards if you say yes. That is spectacularly weird. How do you get over murder? You better hide that zucchini could be misconstrued as a weapon. Recently I was browsing some songs on YouTube from Sonic 06, since that's virtually the only redeemable feature in that game, when I came across a comment that graded each individual aspect of the game. If there was ever a game you wanted to dedicate enough of your life essence to in order to grade each part of it, yeah, I think Sonic 06 is very low on that list. In brief, the assessment was music, awesome, gameplay, terrible, story, pretty good actually, which you can only arrive at if your standards are impossibly low for virtually every aspect of life. Hey, it's fine, you'll never be disappointed. But for everyone else, Sonic 06 has terrible writing and story progression where very little makes sense, and I'm kinda fine with that because I don't care enough. But hold up, Sonic has a love interest in this game, and it's not Amy Rose. Abort, abort. So I get that a game being rushed out ahead of time causes problems for how it plays, resulting in countless glitches and lackluster gameplay elements that sort of don't work at all. But I'm gonna need someone to explain to me how a game that still had 3 years of work put into it can fall so short with its story. No one plays Sonic games for their stories, that's obvious, but you can't really have glitches with story. They should be decent? Sonic 06's story stumbles from one plot hole to another while still trying to weave in a romantic subplot between Sonic the Hedgehog and Princess Elise the Not Hedgehog. Never mind that Elise is used as a way of driving the plot forward, as Sonic's confused hedgehog penis convinces him to rescue her from Eggman roughly too many times. Yeah, she dies once, but Sonic can time travel. Sorry Sonic, your princess is in another time stream! Why should I care? She's got weird fucking hair and a plastic face. They have like 2 scenes of any interaction and that's played really bizarrely too. Oh, hang on. I've found an elephant. So, interspecies relations, yeah? Yeah. No. You can look at a lot of decisions behind this game and see them as questionable at best, but I'd personally like to know the reasoning behind Sonic and Princess Elise hooking up, because that's really fucking creepy. It's played to be all charming and appealing, but A, it comes out of nowhere, and B, maybe don't do this. Of course we have to seal this madness with a kiss, because nothing else can bring Sonic back from the dead. It's like Snow White, but no. Knuckles doesn't know what to do. I think he likes it. This is RabbidLuigi, and occasionally I hear people say that with a bit more time and patience, Sonic 06 could have gone on to be the big hit that Sega and Sonic Team really wanted it to be. And in fact, rushing it out, that is what killed it, nothing else. I don't think any amount of time in the world would have been able to save this plot from oblivion. You could delay the game, but you can fix things in that delay, but you can't fix the story. You can't convince a man who is hell-bent on pairing off a hedgehog with a human to do something else. You can't stop that. We have strayed so very far from reason. Have you got an idea that you'd like me to turn to a countdown? Let me know in a comment down below, and make sure you check out my Twitter, where I'll be turning the best submissions into a poll where you can then decide the best topic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.